Today, I want to touch a bit on Christianity, right? How Christian do you think we ought to be? Yeah, to be considered good Christians. Because a friend of mine called me recently, and he was trying to narrate something that had happened to him that was somewhat, spiritual. And he starts by saying, Ogonna, you and I are not very believing of these things, right? Because he was still in disbelief, right? And he was trying to, make sense of what had happened. And so he had fit us in a box, right? Of not being very spiritual. The thing with friends, they meet you at some point because he's one of my best friends, and it's when they meet you, they know the side of you that they meet, right? And a lot of times I have views that are considered not very traditional, as regards Christianity. And so it left me thinking a lot of things. How Christian are we supposed to be? Are we just winging it? Are we just doing what we know? Or are we following the Bible exactly? Um, but, the thing is, spirituality can be somewhat scary if you think of it that way. So, I'm going to share with you something that happened to me, very vulnerable story, but it gets easier to tell, as the day goes by. We went to church one night. It was a vigil, I remember, in Benin. I went with my sisters. Then there's this priest, his name is Father Albinia, it was St. Patrick's, right? And he's charismatic, yeah, that's what they call him, right? He's a charismatic priest, right? And Catholics were not considered very spiritual, in lack of a better word. Yeah, it was a video, and then there's this anointing going on. Catholics were not very used to anointing in church, right? But I'm not. Maybe you are. I wasn't used to it before Father Obina. And we go to church and they were praying and people start to move, just, and everyone's eyes were supposed to be closed. So for some reason I had my eyes open, it had just started anyways. So when my eyes were open, I looked and I saw a girl, and she was moving. Again, Catholics were not very used to that, or I'm not very used to it. So it was kind of surprising. I was looking at her and I did a mental emo, I remember very well. Because she just was a regular girl like me. I just did not know what that was. And then I closed my eyes, right? And the strangest thing starts to happen. I start to move. And it was until date, it's still, a lot of it is unclear, right? What happened that night, right? I just knew I found out what that was, and it was really moving. I couldn't control it. It was beyond embarrassing, I must say. Sadly, that's the first thing that came to mind. I was just very embarrassed by the situation. But I had my sisters with me, and I remember Kosi saying that after she was saying, I thought you were a witch, right? Because when such things happen, it's either you're possessed and they're trying to cure you of some demon in you or something, right? And all of this was strange. And then we had to go downstairs to where the priest was, right? Because we're upstairs. So I remember Kosi taking me downstairs, and the one thing I remember, right? I do remember the priest saying, today you will know your gifts, and this is what makes you different from others. I like that one. and it was interesting because something clicked, right? What makes you different from others? I always felt like I was different from others. And that's my second question. Do you feel like you're different from others? I don't know if we all have that feeling, but my whole life I just felt like I was different from others, right? And he said that, and those were the two things that I took away. This is what makes you different from others, and today, you know your gifts. Yeah, I do have gifts, but I'm not willing to share. right? And see, a gift really, it's just something that happens, right? I don't know if it's a gift. Yeah, so that happened, and till date, it still is a weird feeling. Spirituality is scary because I'm not even willing to delve into that. I just left it where it was. When that happened, I just left it there. I'm not willing to go so much into what happened that night, right? I'm not willing to, because the truth is, I'm just a regular girl. I want to go to the club sometimes, and I want to go to, I don't want to go to the club and sit down, I want to go to the club and be, I want to wear my skimpy clothes sometimes, right? But still, I am Christian, right? And I try my best to live a very, you know, decent life, right? I try to be as kind as I can be. But then as I get older, you start wondering. And I've struggled with faith, at some point in my life. And I'm here where I completely believe in God and completely believe in prayers. And I was just wondering, how Christian are we supposed to be? Does Christianity mean I don't have to do all these things that I just listed? How are we just winging it, really? What do you think? Please let me know. This is Conversations with Ogonna. My name is Ogonna, and I'm hoping to see your responses in the comments. Bye bye.